Welcome and good evening, everyone. Thank you, Thompson, before anything else, for the beautiful introduction. I hope everybody's okay in this unprecedented timing. Thank you for attending this webinar, and I appreciate the director of the Cambridge Academy for preparing this webinar. What I'm going to do, a little bit of introduction about myself, as Thompson made. I teach at University of Toronto. I'm an associate professor. My background of education is in business, my MBA and my PhD that I'm working on. Today's webinar is about the writing course, the advanced academic writing course that I'm planning to teach at Cambridge International Academy. This course is designed for the high school students for the pathway to be successful in their university courses right after they finish and get graduated from high school. Most of the university students and college students have difficulties dealing with writing and communication courses, as well as the public speaking. The course that I designed for the Academy, Cambridge Academy International, is all about training the students to be able to communicate in more accurate, concise, and precise way. The course description that I prepared in here will assist the students to work on their fluency and cohesion in their writing. What I usually do with the students, I train them from a very basic elements of communication in writing and presentation, public presentation. What I design in this course that I want the students to build up better, when the students are attending the academy, they need to take the assessment test. When they take the assessment test, if they are able to pass higher than band 5, they can attend advanced level of writing. If they're lower than band 5, they can attend intermediate writing course. Both courses are designed to assist the students to improve their communication skills in writing in the system. The intended learning outcome that I designed for this course will help the students to understand a variety of sentence structures, because nowadays the students, specifically high school students, they're constantly texting and are on social media. Their academic way of communication is not really strong, unfortunately. Higher and research universities, like for example, University of Toronto, they only get the higher level of the students. For example, B+ is the lower mark that the students need to have in their high school before they get absorbed and before they get admission at the University of Toronto. In order to do that, they need to have really high level of communication in their writing as well as their speaking. I train them how to improve their sentence structures, how to get ready for the university courses and for the other academic courses, either colleges or universities that they decide to attend. Students in this course will learn how to analyze the subjects and the topic. Another component that I designed for this specific course is for the students to get ready on researching any topic. Students in my classes, they're not only learning how to write, they learn how to analyze any reading passage and be able to get the accuracy of any kind of topic, article, or the research essays that are out there. They read, they analyze, they build up that analytical thinking, then they start to write and reflect. When they start writing, so obviously is the reflection on the research that they did. We start from very simple researches. I usually work with interesting topics that the new millennials and the new generations are absolutely interested in, not to bore them. So they work as an individual and in the team, but usually smaller teams for the quality, for the higher quality. That is my penultimate focus always in training and teaching the students. So they start from learning how to write a simple sentence, and then down the road, writing a simple paragraph to be able to write down their essays. Students do not only get ready for writing their assignments, they get ready for writing in real life, in academic life. If they get a job after the college, after the university, their writing foundation is very strong by attending this academic course. So students are also able to recognize two different types of paragraphs, either regular one or the extended ones, either 5 to 7 sentences for the regular paragraphs or 10 to 12 sentences for extended paragraphs. Students will learn how to communicate effectively by direct, concise, and precise way of writing. Students learn how to select the correct words in academic writing. It's unfortunate that constant communication via social media made the students really weak in the way that they analyze and the way that they communicate, either verbal or in their writing. So I trained them how to access and select proper words for their academic writing. Students also in this course will learn how to proofread, which is an extremely important step in each assignment completion. They need to proofread, they need to edit, and they need to revise. So what I usually do that in the sessions with them and train them by is the students, after learning how to analyze and how to do the research, when they write either from a simple sentence or a paragraph to a completion of an essay or their final article that they write or their research reflection, I give them the benefit of having a second pair of eyes to be able to proofread and edit and revise their own writing by the techniques that they learn. It's all about the strategies and the techniques that the students learn. The components of the evaluation in this course is all about the sentence writing. So we evaluate students based on the way that they write sentences, the way that they critique the reading and writing assessments. Paragraph writing, we have two different types of paragraph writing. I train them, I monitor them, and I test them. And proofreading and editing, which is a major component of this course. So students will be able to edit their own writings. They work individually. I put them in a smaller groups of 2 or 3, either in pairs or team of 3. Then I ask each one of them to proofread someone else's writing or paragraph or sentence. And then they need to proofread their own writing. So they learn how to proofread and they build that kind of habit of proofreading their emails, their sentence writings, their essays, their assignments. So it's a pattern that little by little will be engraved in their writing and in their style of learning, let's say. Students in this course will learn how to correct the errors in their writing. This exercise is pretty interesting because even though it might sound like a quick pop-up quiz, students will learn how to analyze and how to find the mistakes in their own writings per se down the road in a bigger picture, bigger perspective. Students will learn how to paraphrase and how to summarize in groups and individually. And then there is a review on the video that they watch. So I let them watch the video. We're going to have a discussion. We analyze the video. I make them think. I give them sentences or words or phrases. And then I ask them to write about that phrase based on the video that they watch. So this is specific habit. Students will learn how to analyze any content that they receive. How does this affect their learning at universities and colleges down the road? Anything at universities is all about doing the research to avoid plagiarism, to avoid academic misconduct. Therefore, doing the research is the base element of any component that I designed for this course. The schedule for this course, the students will learn about different types of sentences in the first week. All those 4 different types of sentences. They learn about different types of paragraphs, as I mentioned earlier, 2 different types of paragraph, regular and extended. Students on week 3 will learn essential tools and the structure for sentence and paragraph writing. On week 4, they learn about how to write in formal and informal writing style to begin with. and punctuation and error correction and the analysis, individually and in group. They learn about summarizing and paraphrasing in paragraph writing. They learn about paraphrasing in academic writing, and they learn about reading and listening critique before they reflect in their writing. These are the components that I prepare for the students. The assessment that I will give the students is by law, the students need to know how they're getting assessed. Is an assessment that I give them, the students. The management will, of course, assist the students to be able to access this assessment before they get into these courses. There's a 20-minute that the students need to write about a graph that I give them. And due to confidentiality of the document, I'm not going to share the actual test, but the assessment, but I'm going to share the rubric with the parents and the students who are present. Students get assessed based on their fluency. So obviously they learn how fluently they need to connect the ideas in a logical pattern. They learn how the coherence and the cohesion are essential in their writing, how the sentences are supposedly to be linked by linking words and transition words, or the other tools that they might have or know. The final aspects of the writing that the students are getting assessed is based on their academic stats. So once they take this assessment, students learn how they write. I learn about the way of their writing before they attend the courses, and I will assess them to see if they're band 5 higher or band 5 lower, that I put them in 2 different writing courses, intermediate or advanced level. Students are getting assessed based on the content that they write. The content must be accurate in the description and the interpretation of the data that I give them. And of course, and the last one would be the grammar and vocabulary. So I will see how to the depth of writing students are able grammatically not to be redundant, not to repeat themselves, how capable they are in wide variety of the complex sentences or the vocabulary and so on. This is the first one that I wanted to share with the parents, and the next one would be the sources that I have access to. I'd like to share this with everyone. One of the sources that I love to work with. I work with different sources. As a member of faculty at U of T, most of the sources that I have are from University of Toronto, and I have access to those. So it is helpful for the students to get ready for what the universities are expecting them to be ready for. There's another source. So with University of Toronto, I train them on how to brainstorm, how to think about one idea, how to generate the idea, how to be able to create supporting details for their writing, and to make sure that supporting idea is relevant, not to digress the topic. I train the students how to read critically, and I will train the students how to think in a critical pattern. So we work with different types of quizzes and games and analysis in classes. Students usually, I've been told that the students are enjoying those sessions. At the same time, they learn a lot. Each week, the students are having the worksheets. So any lesson that the students are taking, identical to those number of the hours that they're attending those sessions that I'm training them, they need to practice at home. So the assignments that I give them will make them ready for the week or the upcoming week or the upcoming session that they're attending. They learn about paraphrasing and summarizing, as I mentioned in the outline earlier. They learn how to create and construct logical argument. So they learn how not to be biased, how to have, to build that kind of a pattern to be able to argue both sides of the argument, to avoid fallacies, to avoid bias in their writing. Students, in order to write an excellent essay, strong essay, they learn how to create productive thesis statement, how to create body paragraphs and the concluding paragraphs from introduction, body and conclusion. So they learn how to organize their ideas properly. They learn how to create the outline before they start writing their assignments, the strategies and the revision assignments, as I mentioned earlier, how to proofread and so on. And these worksheets, the editing worksheets that I give them, every session would be different. So little by little, I build up the level of difficulty of editing. I start from a very, very simple sentences and phrases for them to correct. And then I build up around it by most challenging paragraphs and essays for them to correct and revise. Proofreading is a skill that many students, unfortunately, haven't had a chance, or they were not focused on, or they were not emphasized over how to proofread. They only learn how to do this and that, but they never learn, and they never focused on proofreading, unfortunately, or they were rushing to submit their assignments, which is unfortunate. I train the students on how to compare and contrast their ideas. So they learn a lot in this course, in those 2 different courses over 2 different months. Other sources that I'm using is from University College, which is a part of University of Toronto. Other sources that I have in here, students will build up strong foundation of the grammar. They learn about the modifiers. What is a dangling modifier? What is a parallelism, for example? They learn about the little bit of practice, how the sentences are designed. They read about it, they learn, I give them the examples, and then they start practicing on their own how to correct them. Not to bore you with the academic detail on the course of how I train the students, but the components of the grammar and the components of the program and the details will be given to them based on the structure, based on vocabulary, thorough arsenal of vocabulary, from very, very simple one to avoid repetition, because many students have lack of vocabulary and they fill it with fillers, like stuff like that, or well, in communication, in order not to have fillers in their writing or interjections in their speaking. They need to have a good source of vocabulary and grammar, of course. So it's not only grammar that they learn, but the whole process of learning. But I mix and match every step, so the students would enjoy that. Another source that I have access to, because I am writing for Harvard Business Publishing Education, and I am an educator and training them as a professor over there, the students. This is the online business school for Harvard Business Publishing. And I have other sources that I have access to. I just wanted to share with the parents to know what are those sources. I create my sources as well, but these are some of those few sources that I have access to, and the students truly enjoy on how to work around critical analysis and so on. One of those things that I would always love to share with the students is critical thinking, because many students, they know how to write, but they haven't learned how to analyze what they think about. They think in one direction only. In order not to think in one direction, try to think in multiple directions and get ready for the research analysis, or for the university courses, because I consider this course as an advanced or intermediate level, but I make is as a pathway. I make the students ready to learn about how to write for higher level of education. Students need to learn how to focus on the topic that I give them. I start from a very, very simple topic, and they communicate. They start collecting data when they do the research. They start collecting facts, but from reliable sources, not from Wikipedia, for example, only reliable sources. They start learning about what examples they can add to their content, not to be academically misconducted, as well as having a thorough kind of assignment to be able to write. They focus on their position, not to be biased or not to have the negative component in terms of comparing and contrasting. They can have their opinions, but they need to collect information through different sources in order to support their opinion. The activities that I usually give them In those activities, they learn how to organize their ideas, how to outline and connect the relevant ideas together. I train the students based on various type of outlining. One of the most popular one is clustering. Have the main idea and try to bubble different ideas that are connected around it. So the pieces of information that they collect by reading more, having good source of vocabulary, having the good foundation and the strong grammar base, they collect the information, and of course, considering the proper citation and referencing, the goal of the outcome of this course specifically is for the students to be able to be very strong in thinking and expressing their thoughts in writing and public speaking, obviously. In this case, for this course is a writing course. Therefore, the students, it is not only, writing is not only putting your thoughts on a piece of paper, is a pattern of thinking. They need to change that pattern. They need to analyze more, and they need to be clear in anything that they say. They need to make sure that their thoughts are accurate. They need to make sure that their thoughts are precise. So precision is one of those elements that students try to say something, but because of a of lack of concision or too wordy language, their paragraph, their sentence, their ideas are not crossing and getting the message across, unfortunately. So the consistency of their thoughts and the way that I train them from A to Z, they learn how to clearly and directly and concisely express their opinion. Relevancy of their opinion is another important bullet point on that front, because many students, they can write, but the ideas are digressing at times. So little by little, they learn how to collect the information that they're relevant. They need to think in an analytical way. Therefore, they learn how the connectivity and how related ideas can be collected. So pieces of evidences, they need to be able to know what source they're having the access to, because those specific sources should be reliable to avoid academic misconduct, and good reasoning. So I give them a sentence and I tell them, okay, collect, I love swimming, for example. What are those reasons? They might come up with some ideas. They start generating ideas. I give them the opportunity to come up with 20 to 50 ideas. Why do you like swimming? If they come up with the reasons, proper reasons, I tell them, okay, take those proper reasons and try to eliminate unnecessary reasons that are not really related to your idea. To the depth of the analysis and the research that they do, it'll create a better way of critical writing on that end. So this is one of my favorite steps in training the students in public speaking as well as writing, in how to think critically, how you're able to collect the examples. The rubric that I usually work around with the students is from management and English literature and political science and biology. Like it has a good mix of the different disciplines, because in English literature we think in an analytical way, but in a different sense, comparing to management, comparing to political science, and comparing to biology. So this will give the opportunity to many students that any source that and any field that they select for their future of study, then they know how to learn and how to write and how to communicate. Now, I would like to open the another PDF file that I have is logical arguments. Students know how to argue their thoughts based on their emotions, but they haven't learned how to control that emotion and collect enough reasoning and communicate in a very strong pattern. In order to do that, they need to learn about some components. To build up the better logical argument, they need to learn about the deduction, how to eliminate irrelevant ideas, and induction, how to include something that is relevant, or abduction, for example, how to conclude whatever that they prepared, the facts and the data that they collected. And of course, the analogy, the analysis of how they think. So they learn how analytical thinking works around it and how the logical argument will be shaped. Because logical argument is not only emotion or is not only a couple of videos that I watched, is beyond and above that. They need to sit and think about it. And I give them the ideas and I give them the paragraph. Read this paragraph. What is the deduction? What is the induction? What is the abduction? And what is the analogy in this paragraph? And then they start reading a reading passage, and we go with the same pattern. By practicing 3 to 6 times, they build up that habit. So automatically, any other article that they read it in their leisure time, they automatically start analyzing it. This is my ultimate goal, to make them curious, to give them that pattern of analysis, because university courses are absolutely in need of this kind of mentality. And it's far off too late when the students are getting to university, they start building this. Because I know the fact, working with the university students at U of D, I know the fact that many students are weak in these skills and they need to build those skills at high schools. Why not building in a better structure in their public speaking as well as their writing in this case? Another component that I love to work with is the penultimate proofreading, because not many students are really in favor of this specific one, because they say, I know the grammar, I know the vocabulary, but when you look at the simple paragraph, you see the redundancy, you see they're repeating the words, lack of vocabulary. They see that their grammar is somewhat off, or it's not coherent somehow when they write it, to some extent. So students in this pattern, of course, it goes without saying that proofreading will need a strong base of grammar and vocabulary, specifically grammar. Because I know something, for example, about one component, and then the next teammate knows something else. So students work individually as well as in group to be able to proofread each other's writing and their own writing when they're having the assignments to be written. They learn about active voice and passive voice. This is one of those challenging grammar components that the students might not know, or might know, but they still have some difficulties on why am I using an active voice and when should I use a passive voice, for example. I give them variety of articles to read, not only one specific article, because students are graduating from high school, grade 9, grade 10, 11, 12, and then they decide, or maybe a year prior to that, or maybe 2 years prior to that, they decide which course they want to study at university, which field of study they're selecting. Prior to that, they need to learn what is their niche. I train the students to find what are they passionate about when they're writing, what kind of articles they need to read more. Obviously, it makes the parents' job easier for them to decide what course they need to take, because they find their niche, they find their strength and their weaknesses, and they need to know how to work on their weaknesses to be able to select what they need to learn. In terms of complete sentence structure, of course, the students, when they learn how to write the correct grammar, they need to learn variety of those. For example, I give them a phrase or a sentence which is not correct. I ask them to correct it not only in one way, but in 5 different ways. What happens in here? Students will be able to proofread their own sentences, and 2, they avoid repetition. So they learn how to correct their own sentences, and they learn how not to be redundant, how not to repeat themselves. So I will also tell them that to avoid repeating, you need to have enough vocabulary, and of course, knowing how to properly introduce and embed the pronouns in your writing. Many students, they keep repeating the nouns because they don't know what other options are there. Verb tenses, the 12 verb tenses will be introduced to the students. Even if they know, they learn how need to work around past, present, and future, and how they need to work connecting the ideas with different tenses. Sentence clarities are considered as another step of proofreading. So we go step by step. Are the verbs correct? Are the pronouns in good agreement? Now check the sentence clarity. Are your sentences clear? Then check the parallel structure. So they learn the grammar, and then when they proofread, I ask them the questions, check these. And they go with the checklist and they say, yes, the parallel structure is correct, and check the spelling and diction. Is the spelling appropriate? Is it British spelling? Is it American spelling? Is it Canadian spelling? Because at times they are confused, or maybe they have wide variety, but they need to know if they start with the British spelling, they need to keep it consistent all the way through the end of the assignment that they're doing. They need to identify cliche or the euphemism or the jargons, how to avoid jargons, or the acronyms. When they write the acronyms, what is the proper way of writing it? And nowadays, because of diversity and inclusion that we have at universities and colleges, which is one of those sectors, in most sectors, they consider diversity and inclusion. Students should be extremely careful about ism words in their writing. They should be fair, and they should avoid having biases and fallacies basically because of that, which is extremely intelligent when they learn how to formally communicate without being biased, without having that weak element in their writing. Spell checking, I know nowadays we have Grammarly and the students are having access online, which is fine. So the tools are there for the students to use, which is intelligent. But the best intelligence is in their brain, and they need to be able to rely on what they have rather than just keep checking and checking and checking. Even though that they type their documents nowadays at universities and high schools as well. But I built that pattern of, excuse me, I built that pattern of try to learn how the words are spelled, because this is how I learned. This is how my parents learned, right? Even though the tools are there, it's okay to check, but try to rely on your brain. Punctuation is another element, which is another component that the students learn, and they don't take it seriously nowadays. Miscommunication is the best communication, I would say, nowadays. Students with lack of punctuation, they miscommunicate and they start misinterpreting each other. Therefore, they need to start learning how to punctuate their sentences in a proper way and how to correct the incorrect punctuation. So they punctuate their sentences, and then I give them the incorrect paragraph, sentence, or essay, and I ask them to correct the punctuation. There are many other outlines that I will go over the details, but I just wanted to share the tip of the iceberg in writing and communication with the parents and the students and the management, of course, whomever is present in this webinar. So the sources that I'm using and what exactly the students learn, they benefit from these courses, and I make them ready for the university courses. Now, I would like to ask Thompson I appreciate if you invite the audience to ask questions. I'm ready to answer any question that it might be necessary to ask.